And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SMITE tournament wrap-up. My name is OctanePro, and tonight we're going to have a great show for you guys going over this past week's tournaments. The main focus of this show is to go over the North American and EU tournaments from yesterday, Saturday, the 19th, and then today, the 21st, going over the EU tournament. So let's go ahead and kind of jump into it. We'll kind of jump into the meat of the show here, and then at the end of the show, we'll have a 400 gem code giveaway for you guys. So make sure you guys do hang out and stick with me. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So let me go ahead and make a quick adjustment. Bam, good to go. So to go ahead and point out, we're going to go ahead and look over the North American Weekly, hosted by Hi-Rez Studios, and of course sponsored by Hi-Rez Studios, which went on yesterday, the 19th. And taking a look here, round one, we had several buys. We had Cognitive Gaming, NA, Dust Dominion, Reason Gaming, Nameless Gaming, Exodus Esports, Team Dignitas, and Panda Bears. And the buys are set up, guys, depending on the seat that team has necessarily. Moving on from there, we went ahead and saw in the grand finals Cognitive Gaming NA versus Team Dignitas. No surprise at this point. Both very big heavy hitters in these tournaments. Both are not afraid of getting into the finals. They're no strangers to the finals whatsoever, these two teams. So let's go ahead and take a look. So for Cognitive Gaming NA, the route that they took to the grand finals was round one, they had a bye, as we talked about. Round two, they went off against Dusk Dominion. And round three, they went off against no stranger, Reason Gaming, as well. Now, for Team Dignitas had a bye, as they are up in the seats quite high. And then round two, they went up against Panda Bears. And finally, round three, which was a very, very good match. And this team is very, very good, up and coming, is Exodus Esports. So moving to the grand finals of the North American tournament that we saw yesterday. Game one, our God selections for Team Dignitas was Agni, which is no stranger, as I said before. I mean, we see Agni time and time again in the grand finals being played by either Team Dignitas or Cognitive Gaming NA. So Agni is definitely a huge favorite, especially as a mid. So we saw Agni for Team Dignitas, Sobek, Artemis, Hell, which Hell recently kind of had her rework and a big comeback in the competitive scene. And then finally we saw Loki. Now the bands that Team Dignitas selected were Tyr and Mercury. So I can see Tyr's been kind of a banned week in and week out here and there, and now we're seeing Mercury, which Mercury was now eligible for competitive play, and Mercury's kind of in that situation now where like nobody knows what to do with them, so it's just best to ban him, just to be safe. Because depending on the scaling and the game time, Mercury could be extremely, extremely good. So we saw Team Dignitas opt to go ahead and ban Tyr and Mercury there, so good decision on their part. Now jumping over to the opponents, Cognitive Gaming NA from yesterday's grand finals, we saw Jean Kui, which is like a no-brainer right now. Jean Kui is amazing in the competitive scene, is played time and time again, and so we saw Jean Kui as the first pick for Cognitive Gaming, Neith, Guan Yu, Hebo, and then Freya. Now the bans here, which we actually have seen a lot out of Cognitive Gaming, I don't know if the matchup they just don't do very well against, or if these are the gods that they're just pretty much like, hey, you know what? These are the top gods that we feel right now. We need to make sure they are banned because of how good they are. We had Naja and Athena for Cognitive Gaming NA. So taking a look at the grand finals, game number one of the North American grand finals yesterday, we saw Jean Kui versus Agni in middle. And it was a lot of fun to actually watch this because Jean Kui is just so hard to gank against in the current state of the game because of the fact of his ability to sustain, and then his kit lends so easily to being able to gain back that health, along with the fact that a lot of newer items that have kind of come into play are very helpful to Jean Kui. So we do see him be very strong versus Agni right in the early game. Now, as we start to move a little bit farther into the game, we see a huge collapse at Team Dignitas' Fire Giant side mana buff, putting Cognitive Gaming up at the 6-minute mark. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one for you. I went ahead and have this ready and good to go. So let's go ahead and jump over and enjoy this quick clip from the North American Grand Finals, game number one from yesterday.
He's running away until the entire
let's go
thing's
ahead
over.
and take a look at
Yeah, but you know that he's going to put out a couple hundred damage as you chase him here. Now he's going to find one mark only on the Jeremy, but he's going to channel the ultimate. There's a stun coming out as well. There's an Eagle ultimate flying. It's going to get blocked, it looks like, on the way in by the Guan Yu. A Kivo rotation and a Freya ultimate needed to pick up that kill, but now the Meteor's starting to rain down, and Continentia getting a bit low. Best forced to kite away from Jaja. They're channeling, lurking in the waters, enough to kill the Zhang Kui. Not taking up just yet. Last is going to re-engage now. Jaja going to get tossed back by Shadow Q as well. They want to find the kill this Guan Yu. They use Assassinate, and they use a Purge the Insolent from Zatman's Artemis as he makes the long.
So as you can see, great, actually, first engagement there, right around the 6-minute mark of the North American game, of the Grand Finals game number 1 that we did see coming out. Put Team Dignitas ahead by 1 in a 2-to-1 combination there. Now, moving on to mid-game for game number 1 is a little different story. At the 15-minute mark, Cognitive Gaming was actually leading 6-4. So we just left off at the 6-minute mark, and Team Dignitas was up 2-1. Well, 15 minutes in, now 6-4. Cognitive Gaming just looking excellent this game. And what I want to show you guys is another great highlight here. We see an attempted gank. What I mean by there is attempted gank at Team Dignitas' Lassus playing as Loki. That turns into a mid-sized team fight. So let's go ahead and jump into that game for the clip for you guys. Really exciting stuff going on here. Fun to see Zhang Kui in middle versus Agni at a competitive level. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really worked out so great for him so far. 1,600 gold and 2,800 experience going the way of Cognitive Gaming right now. Shane going to go for the Witchstone build here on to Freya over that Demonic Grip. So going to go for the attack speed reduction to deal with the Loki a little bit better. Not get 100 to 0 quite as easily, but hold that as here comes Incontinentia in the mid lane, channeling that ultimate, has the dot up on it to Lassus. Now we'll be able to pick him up with the Purge Demons. It's going to be Shadow Q going to eat a Neath ultimate as well as a Freya ultimate, but not go down due to a nice stun coming out from the best to hold them.
So as I said before there, Zhang Kui is just in such an amazing state in the game right now, where he's at. He's so good, especially in mid versus Agni, and does such excellent job because he has that high sustain where we saw Loki come in being played by Lassus, and it was pretty much a 3-on-1 for a very, very short amount of time, and really had no we didn't see Zhang Kui really suffer much at all, regardless of Loki kind of diving directly on top of him there. Now, as the game continues, Cognitive Gaming NA's momentum consists and stays exactly the same. And moving to the late game of game number 1, we see about the 30-minute mark, Cognitive Gaming NA is up 14-7 at the 30-minute mark with almost 8k gold lead over tournament-dominating Team Dignitas. Then around the 35-minute mark, we see some great split pushing by Cognitive Gaming with the recent obtaining of not only Fire Giant, but then Gold Fury. And at that point, they're about 10k over Team Dignitas. Let's go ahead and take a look at this last clip and see how game number 1 ends for Cognitive Gaming NA and our fans here, Team Dignitas.
From Cognitive Gaming. It's going to be pretty hard to hold the base here, I think. And even with the Artemis in the late game, I mean, what is she really going to be able to bring to the table? A few 600-700 damage crits aren't going to be enough to stop 3 carries.
Yeah, you'll see Dignitas, they don't even go for this here. They're going to go ahead and concede the Phoenix. They're split pushing actually right now. Loki's grabbing on the right-hand side, and it looks like the rest of them are driving down middle line. Zatman here, but they're going to lose yet another Phoenix. And Cognitive Gaming, they're going to push in for the win here. This is kind of a base race scenario, but I don't think it's one that Dignitas can win. Now they're all trying to pour back, but the Minotaur's already down to half health. It's going to get bursted down right in front of them, and Cognitive Gaming will take game number 1 in a best-of-3 series again.
And there's the GG. Cognitive Gaming winning game number 1 versus Team Dignitas. A quick overview of that game. Cognitive Gaming excelled amazingly in that game with not only lane presence, but also amazing team communication, which allowed them to have map dominance and a large kill lead throughout the entire game. Ever since about right past that 6-minute mark, it was just a huge lead for Cognitive, and they answered back with everything that Team Dignitas threw at them. If I was to go ahead and name an MVP for game number 1 this week, I would go ahead and actually put that out to Cognitive Gaming NA's Zhang Kui, which the pronunciation, bear with me here, is Uncontinenta. I apologize for butchering that. And was really exciting actually to see that. Had excellent mid laning with Zhang Kui, and his build consisted of the abilities of Combat Blink and Beads, And then on top of that, his items were Obsidian Shard, Shoes of Focus, Forced Voidstone, Rod of... Bear with me on this one. This one's always a good one. Asclepius. I know that one's kind of interesting naming. Breastplate of Valor, and finally, Divine Ruin. Now let's go ahead and take a look at game number 2. At game number 2, once again, we're in the grand finals here. Cognitive Gaming NA leading for game number 1. And go ahead and take a look at game number 2, where we went ahead and saw Team Dignitas pick up Agni once again, Sobek once again. Then we see Neath Hercules, and we see an appearance of Mercury in the grand finals. The bans for them were Tyr and no-brainer Zhang Kui, which makes sense seeing how things worked out last game going against him. On top of that, for Cognitive Gaming, we actually saw Guan Yu, Hell making once again another appearance there, Apollo, Freya, and Hebo. The bans they selected were the same gods as last game, Naja and Athena. And the early game of game number 2, we saw a huge team aggression and a 5-man collapse onto Hell being played by Omega. And I can't really believe the results and the way it turned out here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is game number 2. We're like 4 seconds into the game. With the way that the timer works, you know, we're about a minute and 4 seconds in. But let's go ahead and take a look at this because this is pretty crazy. 5-man collapse. Take a look. I believe the results and the way it turned out.
So, you know, still looking for this pick. Dignitas really wants his early advantage. They find Omega in it. Here comes the play. Oh, it's banished out by Shing. What a play. Last of his dash as well. But they have the creep because throwing in the auto attacks. Omega trying to fall back. Last is still there. Jeremy gonna hit a driving strike, but it's pushing further away. 2, 3. But the heal comes out. Not enough in the early game. Brilliant banish by Shing. Looking for this pick.
So much was whiffed there after the banish. You saw the banish stopped the charge prey. You looked for the opportunity for Mercury to catch him. Mercury wasn't able to catch him with the dash forward. Then, as you said, Jeremy just kind of pushing him a little bit farther away. Then look at Omega just stopping Zapman here, just totally trying to bait him out. Zapman's going to hit the snare, though, and this could be Omega's funeral. He's going to get caught this time, and he does go down.
All right, so that was pretty crazy there. We see a 5-man collapse onto Hell, and Hell is completely able to stay up and get out of that. Hell's had a lot of reworks, and Hell was just recently re-released per se, with a few adjustments to her kit and brand new skins for her light and dark stance. Now, something to point out there was it wasn't enough for Hell to go ahead and get away. Hell had to come back and had to go ahead and do a little harass on the Zapman there, tried to stop that port back, which ended up in the demise there, and actually gave the kill in favor of Team Dignitas right off the back, leading them up 1-0 right away there. Moving forward from there for mid-game, we see a huge left lane push by Team Dignitas that gets reversed in a very interesting way. So let's go ahead and bring that up for you guys here. This is a wonderful demonstration of a nice lane reversal here that we see going on. Let's go ahead and jump in and take a look.
Here comes the stun, follow-up stun onto Allied, and look at that, the Mercury ultimate coming in. They're going to grab Jaja, send it back into it, but Incon's going to answer. Lazarus will go down, and now he's trying to burst out members of the backline. Jaja takes to the horse. Shing's going to start shooting aerial bullets down onto Shadow Q, and he will fall. They're going to try and turn onto Jaja. The heal's going to be good enough, and it's going to force Dignitas back. And Cognitive Gaming, they get a nice counter initiative. They're going to get Zapman too. They do through the tower. Very nice job.
Well, that's smart play by Cognitive. Knew they had it once that first shot.
So it was really cool to actually see that going on there. We saw this type of, lane push from the one team, and then the team completely reverse it and push directly back into them, and a great toss-up and a tower dive combination between the Neath and the Hebo there to get a great cleanup. About the 20-minute mark now, we then go ahead and see the teams tie it up 6-6, with Cognitive Gaming and NA slowly taking Game 2 back in their favor. By the end of the game, though, we see an amazing push at the 25-minute mark by Cognitive Gaming that speaks for itself, along with a great Fire Giant push. So let's go ahead and take a look at that here. This is a really good clip. Make sure you guys check it out. Here it comes.
The trend a little bit back towards Dignitas, but doing what they do best, which is really farming better than most other teams really capable of even conceiving how to do it, seems like. And now they're going to look to push the issue here and attack the tier 1 in the left side lane.
Yeah, and this could be a deadly fight for either team. Dignitas, of course, would be the ones that would have to take the tower if they want to die for this. I would imagine if they go for this dive bar that you're going to see Zapman hanging out in the back, continually poking the tower, though it might be Cog that engages here. Jerby considering going on, and Jaja's going into the backlines as well. The best is taking so much damage. Shinga's going to look for an opportunity to snipe that. Can't quite get in. Meanwhile, Shadowq's going to get bursted down. Jerby underneath tower as well. He will not be able to survive this engagement either, and Cognitive Gaming takes advantage. Allies in the skies. Bye-bye, Best. You're going to get crushed by that chariot, and Cognitive Gaming, just like that, picks up 3 members, scratch that 4 members of Team Dignitas without losing anybody, and they're all the way at the other tower, and they're going to take Team Dignitas' tower instead of losing their own.
Yeah, push right through there, and this lineup that they've drafted, once again, that Freya lineup, she just does so much damage. Freya Hebo, I mean, the first 2 to fall were the frontliners. Sobek and Hercules got torn through. Sobek melted. And then Hercules got, blown up pretty quickly on the back of that Hebo ultimate. And then after that, it was just a simple matter of chasing down. And they have some great ults to do that over here on COG. They have both that Apollo ultimate with the chariot, and they also have the horse from Guan Yu. So kudos to them. And they're going to go for a Fire Giant attempt here as well.
Yeah, and that's the right move to make. The only person up is Mercury. Just use Sonic Boom to get to mid lane to stop Incon from being able to push it. So this is a clear opportunity for COG to get it. They'll take it for free, be able to back off, and now on top of the gold lead that they've built.
So now what happens directly after that Fire Giant, nice little clean team up there, team cleanup there, as we then go ahead and see Cognitive Gaming pretty much ride that wave of the snowball, and to win game number 2 for this week's tournament, giving them a lead over Team Dignitas 2-0 to go ahead and win the tournament. Once again, guys, it is a best of 3, so we go ahead and see some amazing gameplay there by Cognitive Gaming NA. So congratulations to them for actually winning it there over Team Dignitas 2-0 too. So very nice job. They just had an excellent week. On top of that, to go ahead and name the MVP of game number 2. Actually, the same exact guy as game number 1, who was actually playing as Hebo for Cognitive Gaming NA, and his build was Combat Blink and Beads once again on Hebo. Then we saw Bancroft's Talon, Shoes of Magi, Focused Voidstone, and finally the Breastplate of Valor. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this game that happened, the games that happened today, which was the Hi-Rez European Weekly. So taking a look here, we did have SK Gaming getting the only bye in round 1. A lot of teams actually signed up for this week for EU, so really, really awesome to see that. Finally, in the grand finals, we had SK Gaming versus Mortality Esports EU. No surprise there whatsoever. And the route that Mortality Esports EU took was they went against Biff Criminal, and they also went against Cognitive Gaming EU and Payback Gaming. SK Gaming had a bye in round 1. They went against Progressive in round 2 and Apotekit in round 3. Now jumping to the grand finals of the EU tournament today, we did go ahead and see Mortality Esports go ahead and pick up Ra, Anher, Fenrir, Agni, and Guan Yu. Notice anything there? No tanks. No tanks. Finally, their bans were Hell and Jean-Kui. And for SK Gaming, they picked up Kronos, Ymir, Hebo, Artemis, and Ares. Pretty cool to see Ares and Ymir there. So team pretty much capitalizing on the fact of not having a tank whatsoever. Went with the Ymir and the Ares. And the bans were Athena and Tyr. So we're starting to see a pattern here definitely of seeing Athena, Tyr, and Naja banned regardless of the game and regardless of NA or EU. So early game, we see the first kill go to SK Gaming, but Mortality Esports ties it up almost instantly. Let's go ahead and bring up that clip for you guys so you guys can check it out. Here we go.
Crushing wave available to him, but they don't really have a lot of push here. Suntouch has gotten a lot of his health back from potions, and now is going to try to stop Dazer from getting back to the base quickly to give them enough time to try to get some of these creatures into the tower.
Part of the Gold Fury, Fenrir kind of hanging out here, running back though. There's a water spout coming through. Agni rotating was all, but there's Kronos. They could dump it. There's the dash. There's the stun. Standing inside of it, cooking it a little bit. There's the stun. He might have to rewind pretty soon. It'll be outside the window if he rewinds any later. Looks like he's not going to go for it. Ares ultimate. Agni goes through it. There's the bomb. Misses the time rift. Fenrir picks him up into the tower, but there's Proxy QQ, and the water is too much as it crushes through. Ares for Agni. I would say that goes.
Alrighty, so we see it tied up between SK Gaming and Mortality Esports at about the 1 minute mark there. Moving on from there, jumping into mid-game, we go ahead and see SK Gaming has kept the momentum going since the beginning there, leading 12-3 at the 13-minute mark and up almost 7K gold. Moving to the very end of Game 1, we see a surrender vote actually go down about the 17-minute mark for Mortality Esports EU, giving them the win for Game number 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at the last few seconds of Game number 1.
Ares does. Everyone says Ares is underpowered. Ares can't do anything. Ares always gets countered. But said, oh, look at the jump. Pops the beads. Forced beads activation right there. Fender has tier 1 beads. That's going to be a very long cooldown at 180 seconds. 3 minutes of duration there. Chains lands on the Agni here in the mid lane. The Flames coming out here. Good stun under tower range. Desert Fury coming through. Sun Touch pretty low here. Does even Impale or a basic attack? Hebo going to come through. Fenrir very low, getting picked off by Smek inside tower range, and Sun Touch in the jungle, backing perfectly fine right now. The burst damage is forced Guan Yu go down to half HP as the mid tower is.
I agree with this.
And there we have it, the surrender vote going down. GG, definitely. SK Gaming over Mortality Esports, 14-3. It ends up ending in game number 1 there. And if we go ahead and take a look at game number 1, I'd have to go ahead and throw MVP actually out to Smek from SK Gaming playing as Artemis. He went ahead and went with Death Toll, Warrior Tabby, Heartseeker, and the new item Asi. Let's go ahead and take a look at game number 2 from today's Hi-Rez EU Weekly, where we had SK Gaming going ahead and selecting Sobek, Bakasura, Kronos, Anher, and Athena. Finally, for Mortality Esports, we had Artemis, Mercury. Glad to see Mercury making another appearance here. Guan Yu, Agni, and Zhang Kui. Looking at the early game from game number 2, SK Gaming takes the lead with the first kill in the game, setting the pace. About mid-game, it definitely tells a different story, though, where Mortality Esports is leading 11-6 around the 15-minute mark. So it looks like something must have clicked, and everything worked out really, really well there. Pulling together some great teamwork and a map awareness to allow them to dominate over SK Gaming mid-game. Let's go ahead and take a look at some mid-game highlight clips.
Here, ensure those minions don't get into the club as he rotates in, gives himself some extra stats. But now look at this, there's a big grouping here. Mercury ult is down. They use it to try to stop Proxy. Zalia blinks in, getting some damage off. Evan he's taking the brunt of it. He's getting pretty low, but he's not down just yet, able to escape. Sobek jumps over, but oh, the great jump by Zalia's gonna be able to grab that. The ultimate coming out from NQ here. Recall Demon's doing a lot, taking some damage, but this burst is over the wall. Looks like we have a 1-for-1 here, dropping the junglers each slightly in favor of SK right now, but jumping into a trap, not paying attention. Sun Touch is in trouble. Sio just barely gets out of there. 1% HP.
So at this point in the game, around the 22-minute mark, you kind of would be going, like what's going on here? SK Gaming going to lose game number 2 and then push us into game number 3, and that is not actually the case. Around the 30-minute mark, SK Gaming brings it back to go ahead and tie it up, or almost tied up, about 17-18, so about down by about 1 kill to a Mortality Esports. As the game progresses, though, at the late stages of the game, it's a 3-kill difference at about the 35-minute mark, where SK Gaming picks up the Fire Giant, and let's go ahead and see how that works out for Mortality Esports.
Have that available now. They just need to make sure that the Phoenix minions don't get too close to push it down again, and that will start to regenerate. That's something that they're going to rely on going forward. But the Fire Giant's back up, and they're going to start, and Mortality's going nowhere near it. They have no vision. They have no positioning. Agni's going to the mid lane. NQ's in the base. He's going to teleport out, but they're just way too late here. They must have not had the timing down to a second or two. The exact timing is always so very important here, and right there, that is the difference. The Fire Giant is gone. They have it uncontested, no response, and now they're in the exact same situation they were in 3 minutes ago when they had their Phoenix up. They're trying to defend it against a team that's Fire Giant bearing down on top of them.
All right, so now the Phoenix is just being contested here. It gets destroyed instantaneously. They're going to rotate over towards the middle lane, it looks like, to try to get a few more points down before opting to jump into that base. They should note all 10 ultimates are available. The next team fight will likely decide the game, but where is SK going? It looks like they're going to opt to just run back for a few seconds, get some extra creeps to try to get them inside. They don't really have a lot of ranged pressure here. They have the card, of course. They have volley, but Captain Squig maintains the only real pressure on those creeps, and of course, that's going to be bombs. Now, tanking, you see SunTouch trying to get something done here. He has an opportunity to run forward if he wants to, but it looks like they're just going to go for the Phoenix. They're going to get it, and now rotating over towards the left side, they're going to push for the final point, which will weaken the Minotaur to the point where he's no longer even a threat.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they have 2 Phoenixes down. They have the Fire Giant buff. They have map control. Mortality can't go anywhere. I mean, they don't really have anything to do right now. They push out, they're going to lose in a pound-for-pound team fight. They don't have Fire.
So we go ahead and see Mortality Esports fall to SK Gaming, regardless of the fact of actually being up in kills at this point in the game. And if I was to go ahead and give an MVP for game number 2 of the Hi-Rez EU Weekly, definitely would have to hand it out to SK Gaming's Bakasura. And I apologize for this butchering here, Zalia, and the build for there on Bakasura was Death's Toll, Warrior Tabby, Executioner, Frostbound Hammer, Rage, and Deathbringer, and the items there were Blink and Fist of the Gods. Well, guys, hopefully you have enjoyed this episode of the tournament wrap-up brought to you by Hi-Rez Studios. Please check out the next show, which will be next week, Sunday, October 27th at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern. If you guys have any questions, comments, recommendations for the show, or feedback, please make sure you go ahead and email them out to smitewrapup@gmail.com. If you guys are interested in checking out more content from myself, I do several different Smite podcasts along with live streaming as well. You can check me out over at twitch.tv/OctanePro, SCII. My website is OctaneProGaming.com, or feel free to go ahead and type in !OctanePro into the Smite game chat for more information. Please go ahead and go over to SmiteGame.com to sign up and download Smite for free today. You can also check out the Smite news, patch notes, and player stats, and quite a bit more actually over at SmiteGame.com. Also, please, if you want to check out more of the competitive scene for Smite, go over to Hi-Rez site, esports.smitegame.com. And finally, check them out at facebook.com/SmiteGame and the twitter.com/SmiteGame. Stay tuned for community viewer games by myself, along with a 400 gem giveaway in about 5 minutes or so. Stay tuned, guys. I'll see you next.